I have something pretty dang intriguing to go through with you. We talked about yesterday the fact that Trump did this interview with Fox and Friends, and in it, one of the things people were taking note of was all of these really abrupt, noticeable cuts. Very strange where they were choosing to edit things out. And my speculation was they're trying their very best to help Trump out by cutting out parts where he doesn't look so great and to send out to the national audience a more polished version. And even the more polished version was a disaster. He didn't look great. But we could only imagine what the full version looked like. Well, they weren't willing to broadcast that on national TV. But Will Cain's podcast live stream did publish at least what is being referred to as the full. There still seems to be edits that are kind of strange, but more of a full look at this interview. And there's a few things I'll show you. I understand now why they cut things out, but the first one, I want you to imagine, given the sort of QAnon conspiracy theories that we hear in the MAGA world from some that try to connect a bunch of Democrats to trafficking rings and all this different stuff. Imagine if the moment and the comparison between the edited version of what we're about to watch and the non-edited version. Imagine if this story were a story about Biden and an interview he did and how much they would lose their minds, okay? So I'm not alleging anything. I'm saying if MAGA witnesses with Biden, how would they feel? And it is pretty dang strange. So with that being said, here's the edited version when Trump gets asked about declassification of different things. And it gets to the declassification of Epstein-related documents. And here's the edited version.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Attorney General.
Okay, so yeah, I would. And seemingly, Attorney General, instantly he said that. Okay, so that was one of the abrupt cuts that, a little weird, but maybe he just sort of said irrelevant things. So for the sake of keeping the interview interesting, they edited right to the Fox host saying Attorney General. And then we get the full version. And there's a reason I think they cut that part out, because MAGA, if they were logically consistent, would lose their minds over this.
Everyone's talking about it. I know you talked earlier about it. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
I'm going to really quickly pause your viewing of this video to ask that you subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're liking the content, one major way you can help to continue growing this show, and that's just clicking that subscribe button. Easy, free, but like I said, it makes a huge difference.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole.
There's a lot of phony stuff about really, really handsome real estate moguls who don't lather on makeup every single day, and we wouldn't want their lives to be impacted. Sheesh.
You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least.
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there, because that was a weird situation, and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'd go a long way toward that one. The other stuff I would definitely do the January 6th, because, beyond all of them, because what happened.
And then now we're on January 6th. And I have a bunch more moments to play for you from this full interview, and even the rest of that moment is absurd, but very strange. Yeah, of course I would declassify 9/11 related documents, whatever the January 6th related document. But Epstein, I don't know if I would declassify Epstein documents. Imagine if you would. Joe Biden does an interview, gets asked the same exact questions. And then they broadcast nationally one version where it cuts out the part where he sort of goes, I don't actually know if I would do a lot of declassification with Epstein. You would have a freak out from Alex Jones saying, I told you he's a pedophile, the likes of which you rarely see. MAGA would implode. This would be proof of their conspiracy theories about Democrats, given the, of course, horrific underage girl sex trafficking that Epstein was responsible for. And maybe Trump's a little bit wishy-washy on the subject of Epstein and feels very uncomfortable. You could tell he didn't like that question because of footage like this. So you get the point. And we've long known the friendship between Epstein and Trump, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything, of course. A lot of very powerful people associate themselves with Jeffrey Epstein. But when the QAnon conspiracy theorists justify their theories, they often cite the fact that Epstein really did have a lot of relationships with powerful people. And then he really did get charged with sex trafficking of underage girls. So that's proof to them. That's what they'll definitely find notable when it comes to Bill Clinton and him being on the flight logs of with Epstein. But then they're not concerned at all with Trump and his relationship, and Trump saying Epstein likes him even younger than I do, perhaps. So again, just imagine cut version, the non-edited version, and the difference. If that were Joe Biden, it would be an explosion. But let's go back to this and get on to other parts of the interview. Here's the rest of the moment we were watching previously.
And how about the Unselect Committee? They had meetings. You know, they had all Democrats and 2 failed Republicans, right? Cheney and crying Adam Kinzinger. See, Biden couldn't do this interview. Do you think he'd remember crying Adam Kinzinger? Do you think he'd remember all these different names, these
Probably
different
not,
folks?
sir.
And I didn't know you were going to be talking about this, but you know, can you imagine? The whole thing is crazy. What we're doing, what we're going in.
What? I don't even know what he's saying, but really? I mean, it is pretty. Think of this. Trump went that whole interview. He didn't know they were going to bring up one of the people that he hates, which probably is the thing he remember the most, is the people that he hates, that he despises. But pretty dang impressive he can remember the name of Adam Kinzinger. What? Imagine, I would be embarrassed if I accidentally said, can you imagine someone else doing this? It'd be so hard for them to remember the name of someone. Never mind, that's not impressive. Sorry. Very strange. Then you have the moment we looked at already. This was in the full version, but it goes into the parts they edited out, and try to understand the points Trump is making here. Again, this is a deteriorated man.
Brutal. But these are sick people. And for instance, the 51 intelligence agents, who thinks of these? And they think about it just like they say, I'm guilty.
So far, let's just try to, how many times does he change his thought process?
And you know, all this information was from so many years before the election. You know, it's before the election. So it wasn't like, oh, gee, I won an election. You know, the election just started coming out during the trial. They said, oh, I have an idea. Remember John Lovett's The Liar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On
I went
SNL?
to Harvard. Yeah. I went. They do that during the trial. Yeah, that's right. It affected the election. In fact, this stuff never even came. I never even heard about affecting the election. They're talking about the election of 2016. They're going back. You know, the interest.
Yes, the hush money payment occurred before the 2016 election. That's right.
Somebody brought it up today. It was very interesting on your network. Somebody brought it up and they said, you know, the funny thing is that they're deniers because they're now saying that Trump changed the election.
But that's a great point because you're
Yikes. Not the epitome of coherence there. Then here's what he's trying to say is they weren't specifying that the underlying crime related to the impact on the 2016 election because it was related to campaign finance law violations. And then the falsification of business records was an attempt to cover up that underlying crime that was broken based on the hush money payment. But he can't just say that. It has to be, 51 intelligence agents. And, it was before also, somebody said on your network,
I think a little bit. I think we just, well, even before people understood what was going on,
Yeah.
I was doing well with the, you call them Hispanics, you know, there's about 15 different
I
names.
know.
Latin
Just don't say
Americans,
Latinx.
South Americans, they say Latin Americans, South Americans, Hispanics, a lot of different words. But we all know what we're talking.
There are a lot of words out there, and it's too tall of an ask to request that we put those words in a sequence that makes sense. A lot of words.
About the right, you know, this side, the right's not the problem. When you look at Portland, when you look at what happened in Minneapolis, if I didn't call out the National Guard, which I wasn't even supposed to because the governors are supposed to call them, I'm not, you wouldn't even have Minneapolis right now. Minneapolis would be.
So he says Minneapolis, then he goes, wait, Minneapolis. It's Minneapolis. And he corrects himself with the incorrect. You got it the first time. You could see his eyes. Minneapolis. 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 It's the suburb of Minneapolis that's like a smaller version of Minneapolis. Minneapolis. Whew. Here's a little bit more.
These people are really not a threat to democracy, a threat to the country, just to this country surviving. Beyond democracy, beyond anything. So now they tell Ukraine it's okay to start going and popping off Russia. You know, how did we get in this mess? If I were president, there would have been no Ukraine. Not one Ukrainian would have been killed.
Yeah, and he's never substantiated such a claim. But there, what was notable to me is him saying, the other side, they're not a threat to democracy. They're just a threat to everything, the country. And to me, I know this is really reading into it, but that clarification, because he has previously said that we're a threat to democracy, but to me, that's him realizing, wait, the message, and this is it, whether he meant it here or not, this is the sort of MAGA Trump ideology, whether even some of these voters know it or not. It's that democracy may have to be, at least in part, sacrificed because of how bad the other side is. That's what Trump's thing is. That's why he thought it acceptable to attempt to block the peaceful transfer of power. Because for these individuals, democracy has become less of a priority than defeating the other side and then giving Trump and MAGA power. One more clip.
That's a big statement. And the N-word is being mentioned.
Right.
And the N-word is the nuclear word. And, you know, we're probably in real numbers, 200.
Yeah. And he thinks he's really clever. Because every time, for the 5 seconds before I clarify, people think I'm referring to the actual N-word. And he really tickles himself with that remark. Let me know what you thought of the unseen interview moments that are now seen. And specifically, that interesting cut of Trump's Epstein remarks. And if you want to get the daily bonus show, if you're just not happy with the content, it's not enough that you get publicly on the channel, there is more. And you get access to it by clicking that join button below.